So we are on the Ayin Gimel Alman Aleph, right in the middle. Starts with the word Pardisa. We're talking about a kerem, essentially. So Rashi explains what the case of Pardisa is, that a person gave money to buy the produce of a kerem, of a vineyard. He was going to buy the wine, and he's buying it for less at a discount. He's paying for it in advance. So Rav Aser, Shmuel Shari. Rav said it's Aser, Shmuel said it's Mutter. Rav says Aser, Kivin al Kamei Shavuyit, Ve'emiskazi ki agarneta. Since he's paying less for advancing the money, so people who see it will understand that he's paying money, and the seller is giving him essentially a discount because he's getting the use of his money until the wine is ready. Shmuel, he bought. It's not just that he bought wine. He bought the entire production run from this vineyard. So Shmuel Kivan the Havi Beit Yua Loimichziki Agana. Shmuel says, since there's a lot of risk involved in taking the produce of a kerem, it's a notoriously volatile industry. It could be there'll be blight or there'll be some other issue, and it could produce nothing. So people understand he's paying less because he's taking upon himself the possibility that nothing will be produced. Even though Rav says it's asur, because it does, that risk is not sufficient to explain in the eyes of people why he's getting such a discount. But he will admit that people who use a blunt instrument, they use oxen to work in their vineyard, which is even more risky. The oxen, like instead of an oxen, a bull in a china shop, it was a bull in a vineyard. It could very likely damage things. Then everyone understands why he's getting a discount. It's not because of the fact that he's giving the money in advance, but rather because of the large risk. Shmuel said, though, to those owners of land, people who own Balabatim who own land, and they would give it out to a sharecropper. The sharecropper would, in return for some payment, would work the land, and he would give some portion to the owner. But the sharecroppers were not wealthy people, and they didn't even have seed money. They didn't have seeds. So they would even borrow the seeds from the owner. So he would recommend to these owners who are lending seed to the sharecroppers, hapucha ba'ara, you should turn over some land, work a little bit, some portion of the land that you have given over. When you give it over to the sharecropper, it's now in the rishus of the sharecropper. But he suggested to the owners, you work a part of land, that part of the land will still remain in your rishus, and you, the owner's rishus. Otherwise, when you lend seed and get paid back seed at the end of when it grows, it will be like saw, and therefore you'll be also. So what you do is, by keeping some of the land in your rishus, whatever the produce of that land is, it'll be looked on as it never left you. That means it's your land, and this guy is working on your land and producing for you, and you never lost that seed. You have the right to that seed.
So he won't be repaying you with actual seed. He'll be repaying you with produce. You'll be getting the produce. It's the same thing.
The produce is the seed, right? That's whatever seed you plant, that's what it's producing. So you're getting back what you produced, what your land produced. Amalu Rava lahanu deminteri bagi. Rava said to these watchmen. This is why it's so slow, by the way, because it's like 2 lines, and each 2 lines is a whole other setup. Lahanu deminteri bagi. To these watchmen, puku hapuchu bebeidari. He said to them, you should go and not just be a watchman, but stick around till the end of the process when they're threshing the grain, and participate in that. In order that your schiris, the schiris since schiris only is paid at the end of when you're finished working. So if you're a watchman, your job as a watchman really ends when the seed is harvested. So then your job is over, and then they go through a bunch of other processes, but you don't get paid till the end when the seed is ready to be sold. That's when there's money available. So he suggested you should remain part of the process, even after your real job is over. That way, when you get paid at the end, if you get a bonus, if he gives you extra money, that extra money will be for your work. That means you're getting your schiris at the end, and now everyone's getting paid, and you're getting a bonus. But if there were to be a gap between the time when you finished your job and when he paid you, then it would be perceived that that extra money that you're getting is not a bonus for your work, which is allowed, but rather it's in payment for the fact that you waited to get paid for that part of time. So by you working till the end, you're going to obviate that problem. So we are 8 lines up on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the bottom. Like I was just telling Lucy, these are like very short examples, short cases, and each one is distinct. Amalei Rabbanan l'Rav. The Chacham said to Rav, Ka'achol ma'ribis. They accused him of getting ribis. The Kuli Alma Shakli Arba. Everyone else, he was an owner of land, and in return for giving his land to his arisim, to the sharecroppers, they would have to give a certain amount of tvua. They give, let's say, 4. Everyone else every other landowner received 4 kurim in return for giving his sada to his arisim. So the kuli amashalki arba masalki arisim. Everyone else, they would receive 4 kurim, and they would tell the sharecropper, you have to pay me in Nisan. Mar not luad iyu. Good morning. You, however, you wait an extra month, the shakal sisa, and you take 6. So it appears, right, that Rabba was taking extra money in return for giving them the privilege of waiting extra time before paying, which is the definition of ribis, right? You're paying extra money for time. Amalahu, he said back to them, no. No, everyone else is doing the wrong thing. You're misunderstanding the circumstances. The Ara belongs to the land is in the rishus of the sharecropper. When you tell them you have to pay me up and leave the land when Nisan comes, the land can produce a lot more if it's allowed to ripen an extra month. It will produce a lot more, and that amount that it will produce in that month is far more than the difference between what I'm charging them and what you're charging them. So they would lose more by paying 4 Purim. Let's say the land produces 10 in Nisan. So they give up 4 and they're left with 6. And no, I wait an extra month. They're going to get 20. And even though they're going to give me 6, they're going to be left with 14. So they're still ending up ahead. You, by kicking them out early, it's not that I'm getting more for giving more time. You are harming them what they can produce, and therefore you're only able to charge them less. Okay, we're on the top of Ayin Gimel on the base. Rav Mori Bar Rachel Mashkin Le'ahu Nachri Beis. Rav Mori Bar Rachel got a mashkin of a house from a guy. So Tom borrowed money from a Mori Bar Rachel, and in return he gave his house as collateral. Hadar Zavna Marava. Then this Tom went ahead and sold it to Rava while the house was in the rishus as a mashkin by Mari Bar Rachel. This guy sold it from underneath him. Not a tracer yachi shasa. Rava waited 12 months. Shakal agabes, and he took the rental. And Amtilei Rava. And he went, I'm sorry, Rav Mari Bar Rachel waited 12 months. He was still holding on. The deal was he was allowed to use the house and he enjoyed it. He didn't have to pay any rent for it. He got to use the house and enjoy whatever it was. He basically got it rent free. But at the end of the year, after a full year of using it rent free, he went to Rabbah at the end of the month and he said, okay, now I'm ready to start paying you rent because you're the owner. Amalei, and he explained, why didn't I for the past year pay you any rent? The stam mashkanta shasa. Because like we saw before, when someone makes a mashkin, the owner, we said before that places where the minig is, that or sometimes they'll make up that he can't, some places have the minig that the lender is there's no prepayments and the borrower cannot prepay, and the lender gets to keep it and use it till the end of the term. The other places where he does have the right to prepay. But in either case, for the first year, there's never a right to prepay. That first year, it always belongs fully to the lender. So over here, Mari Baruch was the lender. So he felt he was entitled for that first year to use it, and he didn't have to go to Rabbah who had purchased the land. Because the seller, this borrower, did not have the right to sell it at that point. This guy did not have the ability to get me out of the land, to get Mari Bar Rachel out of the land. So therefore, there's no need for Mari Bar Rachel to pay rent to the purchaser from the guy. But he says now the year is up. So now you purchased that land. So now I have to pay you every month's rent at the end of the month. Amalei, so he said, Rabbi said back to him, first of all, you should know, had I known this guy said he had a house, I didn't look into it and I didn't realize that he'd given it as a mashkin to you. I never would have bought the house knowing that it was a mashkin by you. That was a mistake. Hashda k'dinei mavdin. But now that this is the case, we should do it according to the dinim of the Oivdei Kechav. Where according to their rules, as long as a mashkin is by a lender, their rules are not like ours. So we said that it depends on what the minig is. Or actually, I think the way it works is we said it depends on the minig. So over here, the minig is based on the Goyish minig. And the Goyish minig is, as long as the house is by a mashkin, is by a lender, nobody can, the borrower cannot take it out from him until the loan is paid up. I too am not going to cause you to pay me rent for this land that I bought until the borrower, the guy, pays up what he owes you, and therefore it goes into my rishus. Amalei Rava mibarnish, new situation.
So basically, this Mari Bar Rachel ended up without losing his collateral.
Yeah, he ends up, he keeps the collateral. It's basically Rava bought something that wasn't in the rishus of the person he bought it from. He should have done a better title search.
Right.
It wasn't in this guy said, I'm selling you a piece of land or I'm selling you a house. There's someone living in it, someone using it. It was his, he said we have to go according to the chukas hagayim, the minig of that place, which is that you can't remove it until the loan is paid up. You can't take a mashkin away.
He was never going to pay up.
Oh, I don't know what the enforcement mechanism was to get it to pay up. Right, you're saying he lost it. There's no mashkin anymore as far as the guy.
He's obviously a crook, so the money is gone.
Yeah, I mean, no, maybe he's not a crook. Maybe you're saying that he sold something. So in the end, let's say the term of the loan was 3 years. So he said, okay, you'll get it after 3 years. You're buying it. You probably should have mentioned it to him. You're right. Yeah, you're right. How is he going to get it from him? I'm not sure. Amalei Rava mi Barnish l'Ravashi. Rava from Barnish had an accusation that he leveled to Ravashi. Look how the Rabbanan are lax and they eat ribs. How do they consume ribs? Because they give money for wine in Tishrei when it's cheap. And then they pick it out in Tevis. And Rashi explains, between Tishrei and Tevis, a significant portion of the wine goes sour. And this person is paying he's paying in advance, and he's going to pick it out later, and he's going to obviously only going to pick good wine, so he's getting a cheaper price in return for the fact he's going to get better wine, and even though he's paying the price of later, but he's also making himself he's putting himself in a better position. Basically, his ribbis is that he's getting to pick wine that's not going to go bad. Amalei, in return for paying earlier. Amalei inu nami achamar kayav achal loy kayav. He said you're misunderstanding. The rule is that when people buy wine, even if they buy in Tishrei, it's the wine always has in it the seeds of its own destruction. If it's wine that's going to turn to vinegar, it already is vinegary, slightly vinegary at the beginning. So, therefore, if someone were to buy wine in Tishrei, the upmach would always be that if it turns into vinegar, he can go back to the seller and say, you have to give me a refund on it. So the fact that he's able to pick later non-vinegar wine is not really so consequential. People say, it's your fault essentially. You're selling me wine that turned to vinegar. You should have been something. I don't know how he could have controlled it, but it means it already was a slightly vinegary, and you shouldn't have sold it to me.
Is Poiskin al Paris still?
This is Poiskin. Well, this is not a case of Poiskin al Paris because he's paying the later price. He's paying the full price.
So what's the question then?
So the question is that he's getting a benefit that he doesn't have to worry about it turning into vinegar.
So it's not actually.
He's paying in advance.
The shuk price is the same.
Right. So therefore, we're not worried about Poiskin al Paris, but there's a difference.
It's not taking on that right, there's obviously a price for wine with built in a concern that it may turn into vinegar.
Right.
He's not having that built-in concern, so it's an added benefit.
So the Gemara, that's not really true. He's not really getting any effect. I mean, kara the chamr cham the chala chala. Aisha shaita to come mipri. He shaita who to come mipri. And that at the time that he chose it was already either chala or chamra, and it didn't make a difference. What he chose, you'd be able to get in the end, chamra, you'd be able to get wine. Ravina Haviyov Zuzi Lebnei Akra de Shamvasa. Ravina would purchase from the Bnei Akra Shamvasa. It's a place by a nor, and he gave them money to give him wine. At the price of which it was going to be later on. I mean, at the full price. And he gave it to him now. So there's no problem of it's Yotze Ashar, he's paying at the Yotze Ashar, but the problem was they would pour him out an extra cup of wine when he paid them in advance, the full price, and then when he got it, they poured him a little extra. Also, the Kamei de Ravashi, he went to ask Ravashi, is this okay what they're doing? Is that ribbis that they're giving me a little extra? We know that legabi alone, you're not people. There's a psak. I think you're not even supposed to say thank you at someone when he pays back alone, because it mechzik ribis. So maybe this that they're handing over to him a little bonus, an extra wine, should be ribis. Amalei mishari, is it allowed? Amalei in, no, it's not a problem. He said, it's they're being meichel to you, meaning. There was no upmach, there was no ksutza, there was no agreement in advance that they were going to do this. So we're talking about a sale, we're not talking about a loan, and there was no agreement, so there's not even a mechzik ribis, there's no chash of ribis in this case, right? It's like if you pay in advance for a piece of furniture, and then when they hand over the furniture to you, they also give you a vase. They give you a bonus. It's part of business. It's a commercial thing. But if there's no making up in advance, it's not ribs.
The television, the bank.
Right. Well, that was the problem. The toasters. Talking about the toasters. I remember that it was
television. I'm sorry.
I think there's a Moshe about the toasters.
That is the problem?
Yeah, because that's loans. This is a sale. They're giving you a look. When you give them, they're giving money to them, and then whatever. It depends if the bank belongs to a Jew, obviously. Amalei, he said, but there's another problem. How can these people who were selling to you? This is a totally separate problem, nothing to do with ribbis. These people who had this land that they were growing on it, the wine, it wasn't theirs, meaning that it had been seized by people. It was land that had been put up for auction because people hadn't paid their taxes, and they were growing on this land. These landowners, the people selling the wine, used properties that the people had abandoned it because they weren't able to pay their taxes. So maybe it's not their land, and you're buying from. There's no stealing. You can't steal karka anything zealous, and so it really belongs to the owners, and they're taking something. You're buying something stolen. Amalei arla taxa mishavda. He says no, since it was being seized because of non-payment of taxes. Umalka Amr, and the din of the din of the malchus din is mandi yov taska lechalara. Whoever is willing to pay the tax, they can use the land. So therefore, they were under din of the malchus din. They were allowed to use this land. It wasn't illegally raised land. Amalei Rapapa Rabba, and another aspect of this rule that we say din of the malchus din. Chazi mar hani rabbanon the yavi zuzi akarga de inchi umishav de butfei. Look at our rabbanon that they pay the taxes that people owe, and then they put those people to work. They make those people work for them to pay off the taxes that they paid on their behalf. People had to pay a head tax, a poll tax. If someone didn't pay the poll tax, there was some rabbanon would say, "Okay, listen, I'll pay your poll tax, your head tax, and then now you come work for me, and I'm going to work you hard." He said, this doesn't seem palatable. It doesn't seem right. Amalei, says it's a good thing I'm alive. Had I not been alive, I couldn't have told you this rule, which is Hachi Amar of Sheshus. This is what Rav Sheshes says. Muhurkayu dahani betafsa de malka manach. The seal or the rights to this chosim avda shalem, the work, I guess the indentured nature of a person, the work of a person. This is like a very Democrat Party type of way of looking at things. A person's work really belongs to the government. Maybe it's a communist way of looking at it, socialist. Yeah, your work belongs to the government, and whatever they let you have, that's what you're entitled to. B'malka monach, it rests by the government. Umalka amar, and the government says, mandalo yov karga, who doesn't ever pay the tax. It's given over to the person who's willing to pay it on his behalf. So therefore, the rabbanon who do this are not doing anything wrong. It's again din of the malchus dina. Rav Suram achva de Rava. Rav Suram was the brother of Rava. Have a tokef inshi delay mali. He would grab people who were bad people, who were doing the wrong thing. He had a lot of power. I think he was like the Nasi. Umayaluhu begurka de Rava. He had them carry Rava around. That was the work he assigned them to. Amalei Rava shaper ka'avda. Amalei Rava shaper ka'avda. Rava said, you're doing the right thing. Tnina, we learned in a brisa. Rosh she'einu noy kishur. Someone who's not doing the right thing, someone who's not a good yid. Where do we know that you could put him to work? So you sing that it's not just you don't just find him, you don't just put him into nidui, you don't even just put him in prison, you could put him into a labor camp, you could put him to work. Where do we learn that from? We see from a pasuk. This is an asmach, this is not a deraisa dikadin. The pasuk says, La'olam behem tavoidu, but we stop the pasuk earlier. We darshan it. Lo'ilam bahem tavodu. They should always work for you. V'achechem b'nei Yisrael, and also b'nei Yisrael. If they're bad people, they should work for you. Maybe the Bezdin or the rulers have the right to put people to work even when they're not doing anything wrong. The end of the pasuk is you shouldn't put him into Avda. So it's under certain circumstances you can, but generally you cannot. Amar of Chama. Someone who gives money to his friend to buy for him, he hires someone. I think he's paying him. It doesn't say that clearly, and Rashi doesn't explain, but I think he's paying the guy. Go and buy for me wine. And the guy, he went into the bar, and instead he drank beer, and he never bought the land. This Lady Geyer employee has to go take his own money and buy it at the price that it would be at the cheaper place. That means he had told him, go buy now. Now's the time when it's cheap. And the market is here, and the employee didn't take care of it. And now he doesn't have the opportunity to buy cheaply. So we say the employee has to make good out of his own money. He's going to have to buy it, even though the price of wine has gone up. He's going to be forced to do so. Omar Amema, I'm sorry?
You used money in the bar?
No, he just didn't take care of his job. His job was to go buy at the cheap price. Take the work, the employer's job, and buy at the cheap price. But that opportunity passed away. I think he's getting paid for it. The Gemara doesn't say that, but I think it must be that he's getting paid. Otherwise, he said, I'm going to do a favor and I'm going to penalize him. I think but even if he's not, if he was Meshabed himself, he said, I'm going to do it. So now he cost this guy. Let's say he gave his labor as a matana to the guy. But he said, I'm doing it, and therefore the employer didn't do it himself. Well, the Meshalef, the person who sent him, didn't take care of it. So it's a lost opportunity cost. So he has to pay for it.
The loses out.
He's losing out, right? He lost the opportunity to buy it at a cheaper price. Does the employee? So he said he has to make good. He has to make sure to buy it at that. Well, he has to get him wine and at that cheaper price. And if he can't do it, I guess he'll have to make good. Yeah.
But no, but according to this, he's able to buy at the cheapest place.
He has to go to the cheapest place. Maybe it's not available nearby. He has to go, but it's his responsibility to get it at that cheaper price. I think it means just, but it's not now you moisabotzer, and therefore he has to make up. I don't think it's available right now. That's what I understood. So you want to ask this question. Amar Kika Amar of Chama, that which we said that he has to make good, and Hanimili Bain Bistam, Biyain Stam. That's only where he told him, I want you to get wine at this cheaper price. I will be Yain Zeh, but if he said, I want you to go buy a bottle of Kedem Heritage lineage vineyard, whatever the specific, what is it called again? I forgot what it's called. In that case, if you said a specific bottle, because if you want a specific bottle, he could have gone to the store and they wouldn't have had it to sell to him. So he didn't necessarily lose the opportunity, so he can't be held responsible for that. Rav Ashi says, no, he doesn't have to pay for it, even Yain Stam. My time, even though this employee was Meshabed himself, he said, I'm going to go get it. But he thought, I'm going to for sure get it. He didn't think he was going to go to the bar and get fatracht and be middle playing darts, and then he'll miss the market. So even though he was Meshabed himself, his shibud was not a real shibud. It was only a smachta. Like we said, it's like gambling. When a person says, I'll pay you $100 if I can't hit this tee shot on the green, and the guy thinks I'm for sure going to do it, so he doesn't have to pay the $100, but it's only an asmach. This guy also is an asma. We're talking about here someone who made up. He was a sharecropper, and he took a field, and he said, "I'm going to give you half of what is produced." And then the sharecropper ended up not doing anything. So he didn't end up, the field didn't produce anything. And now the landowner is very mad. He said, I gave it to you to work the fields. You didn't work the fields. And now you're saying, oh, you're getting half of nothing. Ashal mitzvah. If the sharecropper said, I'm going to pay you back if I don't work the fields from Meitav of my other sodus, I don't know, somehow this sharecropper has other sodus, so he has to pay. So why don't we say over there it's an asmachta also, because this sharecropper certainly assumed he was going to work and he didn't think he was going to just be a late guy. So Gemara says the sharecropper is different. If he works the field, it will produce whatever it produces, and then it'll give half. So he could have done it. But over here, even if he said just go buy wine, Lamaisa, even if it's stam, there's always a possibility that the store will be closed. They won't be willing to sell to him. They won't like him. Whatever it is, they'll run out. So there's a possibility that it's not fully biyada. That's more of an asmachta, and therefore he's not chai. Amar Rab, Hani Beit Tlasa. This is a strange Gemara. I'm not really sure what to make of. These three guys, Yavi Zuzi Lechad, they gave money to one person, Lemizman Lehumidi, and they sent him to buy something for them. They each gave him money. They made a shutfus together. You go buy for us. It doesn't say what he was buying. But Zavan Lechad Minayim. In the end, he bought for just one of them. We say Zavan Lekulu. What he bought, since it was a shutfus, they agreed that they're buying it together, and they each gave a third of the money. The thing that he bought, let's say it was a barrel of wheat, gets divided amongst the three of them. They each pay a third of the price, and they get a third of it. That's only if each person did not give their money separately. If each person gave a bundle with their money and said, this is my share, and use this to buy for me a barrel of wheat, then it taka belongs to all three of them. Because it means if they all gave it to him, they gave him $100 each, and he put $300 into his pocket, and it's not separate. If each person gave $100 in a bag, and he now has 3 bags with $100 each, lamanda zavan. Whoever he took their $100 and used it to buy it, that's what it's bought for. On mandas loy zavan. The one who he didn't sell it, buy it for, he didn't buy it for. I would have thought this would depend on if he loses the money. Let's say he lost one of the bundles. How does that get apportioned? I'm assuming that the money that they gave him is still in the rishus of the Marcham. He's not lending. They're not lending him money. He's not a lender. He's buying with their money. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense that it makes a difference whose bundle it is. So it should really come down to, if the money gets lost, who has to absorb the loss? It means if they're separate, do we say that each person's separate bundle is still in the rishus of the original person? And then, but if it's looked on as it's just cash that he's holding, and therefore it's divided amongst the three of them, so it sounds like he's saying that the money is going to still be in the rishus of whoever it was gave him each bundle, and therefore when it's used to buy, that's the one who bought it.
It does seem like he has some point. He has a choice here. Now they each give him 3 separate pile. If he puts it all together, then he's showing that I'm buying it all for all of you. But if he keeps it each separately, so it seems like his actions do dictate what happens. So if he keeps it separate and he loses one bundle, then it's Reuven's bundle.
Agreed. I agree with that. I'm saying, but it should also be relevant if it gets lost beforehand, whose money was lost. Was it a third of everyone's money, or is it just the one whose bundle was lost?
Imagine more when the same, right? It's the same thing.
It should be the same thing. Yeah, I'm saying it should be tied into that question. Amar Papi Mishmei Rab. Hai Setumta. This is, I think, one of the most relevant in practical halacha, this din of Setumta. So Setumta is when you make you write a siman on a barrel of wine. When you're buying wine and you go down to the the cellar where they have all the wines, and you put your name on one of the barrels. So kanya, it's kind of. And we know that the kinyan is either Mashiach or Agba, or there's a Mishapar if you give money. But the Paiskim say that this is a raya that you can make up other ways to be kaina. It means that people agree amongst themselves to be kaina in a different way, like we do. We have our contracts and we have handshakes and we have all kinds of things that a person can signify that a kinyan has been made. So this situmta, he's saying that a situmta is if there's a different upmach, if there's a different hanhaga, that could also be kaina. So Rav Chaviva says it makes it mamish a kinyan. Says situmta does not have the kayach to make an actual kinyan. All it does is as if you gave over money, it's enough to make it that if they back out of the deal, you chayav a mishapara, you get a klol of mishapara. Allah is to be makabel mishapara, but asad nehi yilamakni mamish kanu. However, in a place where the minig is that everyone agrees that this is the way you make a kinyan, then that's enough also to make a kinyan. It's not, the stam is that it makes a mishapara. But in a place where they say when you make a handshake, like on 47th Street, you make a handshake on a diamond, it's like a kani, it's not just mishapara is that someone, when you give money, when you make a kinyan on metaltalin, you have to make a mashicha, or make a hagbah. But the Chachamim Masakin that once money has been paid, even though there was no Mashiach, if the parties back out, if one of the parties backs out, they're chayiv the Mishapar, which is a klala, Mishapar midar hababel hu yifra, that the Torah is gonna, the Rebbeinu Shalom is gonna make you pay back. You're doing the wrong thing.
Talton is still by the seller's rishos.
Yeah,
and so
the buyer handed over cash. And he didn't take the property. So we say let's say if the seller backs out or the buyer backs out and says, I want my money back. I'm not, there was no kinyan. Whoever backs out is Chayim Mishapar. So this is a very technical Gemara. We said in the Mishnah, I think, are we up to it? We said, if it's before, we're going back to the Mishnah. We're talking about a forward contract is be'etzem ribos, right? Because you're giving money now to get something later, and the price will go up, and that's be'etzem ribos. There's two ways out of it. One is if it's yatsa shar, but if there's no yatsa shar, could also be avoid ribos if it's yeshloi, right? If it's in the hands of the seller. So we said in the Mishnah that we gave a bunch of different examples of cases where it's yeshloi, but it's not fully completed. The seller has it in his hands. Like we said, we had grapes, but he's going to make it into wine. He had olives, he's going to make it into oil. And we're going to go through each one of these cases. But we have a basic question. Meaning there was no yatsa hashar. So we said then it has to be yeshloi. Amarav, that din that we said yeshloi, that he has it in his hands, even if it's unprocessed, it's not fully full, it's not complete. If it needs two more processes to reach completion, then it's still considered to be yeshloi. But shalish, if it still needs three processes, then it's not considered to be sufficiently close to completion, and it's not considered yeshloi. Ushmul Amri bidei adam afilu me'ya paisa. Shmuel disagrees. He says, no, it doesn't make difference how many things have to be done. If the guy could do it, it's considered yeshla. He has, because it's within his ability to finish it up. So then it's considered done. Bidei shamayim, but if it's bidei shamayim, meaning, like, let's say you have stuff in the ground, you have a seed that they're just blossoming, but it still needs to grow. Afilu achas ein paisik. That's considered uncompleted. That's a machlokes. Tanan. Paisik imel agagish. The first example we gave in the Mishnah is he made the yeshloi was on a pile of wheat. First of all, he has to put it into the sun to dry, and it has to be threshed. It has to be trampled on to separate the wheat from the chaff. Umidra, and it needs to be winnowed again to separate even more wheat from the chaff. So you have three processes that are needed So l'chayr it's shver on Rav that he says shalosh ain't paisik, because we said in the Mishnah that's considered yeshla. So going to shada b'chama v'yavish. We're talking about it already had been placed in the sun, so it wasn't missing that part. So there's only two things left.
That's the Shemayim. The sun to dry it out.
He has to put it there. He's saying the sun eventually will come.
So that's
I guess not. Sun will come out tomorrow. What about Shmuel who says the question is more on the winnowing, the last thing. The way you do winnowing is you throw the wheat in the air and the wind blows it away. But you need a strong wind. The sun comes eventually, but the wind might not come for 6 months. There's another way to do it. You can do it with a sieve. This is the easier way is to winnow it with the wind, but it's not much. And we said, what about a vat of grapes, which we said is also considered to be yash. It's missing putting it into the vat. I'm sorry, no, you have to first ripen it. And you have to put it into the press, and then you have to stamp on it. They would stamp on the grapes, and they take it out of the vat. So there's 4 processes. We're talking about already ripened grapes. In fact, we took there were 4, so you eliminated 1. You're still left with 3 processes. We're talking about where the person who buys it, he takes it out of the vat. So there's only 2 processes left to be yeshla. And on the vat of olives, it's missing, first of all, to ripen the olives and to put it into the press and to press it, and the man going to take it out. We're talking about where it was already in the vat. It was already ripened, I'm sorry. But there's still 3 left. The person who takes it, who's buying it, he takes it out, so it's only 2 left. And then we said about the balls of a potter, balls of clay that have to be shaped and made into pottery. It's missing, I think, what is lefufi? It's shaping it right, making it into a pot. Yivushi and drawing it out. Ayuli lasuna and putting it into the kiln, lemisrep, and to fire it, to bake it. Ulamefik and take it out. The Gemara coined the malap. It's already shaped via vishu and it's already dried out. But there's still 3 left. Again, it's talking about where the person who buys it takes it out of the furnace. We said if he has lime, if he has mortar or cement, when he puts it into the furnace, it has to first be ground up, and I think burnt, dried out, and then crumbled again. So the one who buys it, he's the one who crumbles it. Why did the Mishnah point out that it was already put into the kipshin? It doesn't need to be, as long as, according to Shmuel, why would you have to say specifically put into the kipshin? It could be 100 things that have to be done. So why did the Mishnah point it out? He says, no, it's not that it was put into the kipshin. It has to be reached a point of dryness, of progress, which is ready to be put in the kitchen, and that's bidei od. Okay, I'm going to leave this last one because this one is quite schwer.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great day.